I'm back down here in the corner. It's getting to be night as I'm recording, so I think it might be a little bright because of lights. Anyway, I apologize. So we've been talking about the models for researching stress and illness and looking at how researchers can go about that to find causation or correlation, and some of the different models that are used and some of the pros and cons with those. And now we're going to talk about the immune system itself and how it works. And my clicker is not working again. Sorry. Okay. So first, psychoneuroimmunology. We did define that a little bit earlier, the study of the relationship between the psychological, neurological, and immunological interactions. Important field of study these days. So human immune system overview here. The immune system protects us from pathogens, either internal or external, that threaten our physical well-being. Pathogens are the invaders that infect the body. They can be external, which can things like bacteria, viruses, fungi, microorganisms, things that can get in from the outside into our system and cause us infection and illness. Internal, endogenous, the body's own cells that get infected but then can mutate, the way the body might work upon itself in a way that is not healthy and cause cancer, or build cancers and tumor cells and things like that. So the immune system is what tries to protect us from all of those things. Antigens are part of a pathogen. They're molecules on pathogens, that let the body know the infection is present. So they're the things that send out the siren, as it were, so that the immune system will go into action when something foreign that isn't good for it enters the system. And so the immune system will recognize those antigens, and each kind of pathogen has its own kinds of antigens. So there are two types of immune system that we're going to talk about. The innate immune system is the first. And so innate, meaning it's part of the system, comes packaged with, as it were. So we have an immune system that is there from birth, from the time we're born, and it's innate within us. It is part of our package. So it's made up of natural, it's also called the natural immune system in some places. It's made up of natural barriers that keep those threats out, and it is very quick to respond. It's either there from the beginning to try to prevent things from getting in, or it goes to work very quickly if something does get in. So it is the first to respond. It's the first responder. It's non-specific, which simply means that it's kind of there to help with any kind of thing that gets in, any pathogens, any infections that that it feels rising against the system. It doesn't act specifically on certain kinds. It's more generalized. It provides general protection. So it includes things like physical barriers, such as your skin, eyelashes, nose hair, things that are built into the system to keep things out. Defense mechanisms such as mucus, saliva, tears, which can wash things away, get rid of things, and protect, defend the system. General immune responses such as inflammation and fever. Inflammation, so these are things that the body does automatically in response to infections or pathogens that get in. Inflammation characterized by heat, redness, swelling. When something is damaged, if there's a tissue or an infection, WBC, white blood cells, release chemicals to increase blood flow to that area, which then in turn creates the swelling and the inflammation. So, and fevers rise, heat rises in order to help kill infection as well. So these are things that, of course, if these things are overdone, with too much going on, then they cause chronic, if they become chronic, they become problems. Chronic inflammation can be the body working against itself. But inflammation is part of our innate immune system to begin with, something that we need. So, still talking about the innate immune system, we come packaged with white blood cells, leukocytes, and they're the prime defenders. They travel throughout the circulatory system looking for problems, infections, and antigens, different kinds. Phagocytes, they are eating cells, like little Pac-Men. They travel the system looking for invaders and gobbling them up. Macrophages, they are very efficient phagocytes that can move through vessels, through capillary vessels, which are the smallest little vessels of the body. So they're a little less limited. They can go into these vessels, so into other places. And they also can send out messenger secretions, like secrete chemical messengers that can recruit other cells if an area is infected. Mast cells are found in the mucous membranes, connective tissues, and they are ones that can use that inflammatory response to aid in healing wounds and things like that. So it's very, I think one thing, the hard sciences are not my place of comfort necessarily. They're not where I come from, but I find them fascinating because they do show us just how amazing the body is and how much we have innately within us designed to protect us and keep us well and do all these things that are just meant to happen in order to keep us well and healthy. So it's quite an amazing little system we're born with. So there's also within that innate immune system neutrophils, which are phagocytic, and they're also granulocytes. And those phagocytic, remember, like the Pac-Men, the granulocytes contain little granules, little packages that they can send out, and like they send into bacteria, fungi, and stuff, and they're like toxic to them and can kill them that way. So neutrophils are our very first responders. We produce about 100 billion of them daily, and they make up about 40 to 60% of our white blood cells. So they're our biggest one there to respond and protect. Eosinophils, 1 to 6% of white blood cells. They're phagocytic and granulocytic as well, Pac-Men, and then little, I don't know what you want to call these other ones. They sort of have granules that they can send out, sorry, there's bugs. They can send out to kill infection. They kill parasites, bacteria, and they're very active during asthmatic and allergic reactions. So, for example, my son had some blood tests done, and this particular form of white blood cell was a little bit high, and they just said it's because he tends to have lots of allergies and asthma and things like that. So so it's one form that responds in reaction to those kinds of things. Basophils, granulocytes that secrete histamine. So histamine is their little thing that they send out, and we all know, histamine, antihistamines, in response to allergic reactions and cause inflammation to try to repair that and get rid of those invaders and infections and so forth, or invaders that are causing the problem. Natural killer cells, such a nice name. They're lymphatic. That means that their home is in the lymph system. They develop in bone marrow, as most do, and they move in greatest number to lymph nodes, spleen, and tonsils. They will help and destroy tumor and cancer cells, which are endogenous, coming from within the body, by releasing toxic proteins. Um, so they're getting a little more specialized in what they do. So that was the innate immune system we've been talking about with all of these and the way, and this is kind of part of us. These are the first responders. These are the things that are going to go on anytime anything kind of tries to break the barriers that the system already has in place. And then the second type is the acquired immune system, also called adaptive or specific. It's not present at birth. It's a learning immune system. It learns from what happens and then adapts to it in order to specifically battle certain problems. So it's much slower because it has to learn and then it has to design custom fighters. It's more advanced. it takes about 4 to 5 days to activate against a new invader. So because if a new invader comes in, it has to learn from it in order to um, then respond to it very specifically. It remembers past antigens, so this is very much how vaccines work. Um, it takes bits of kind of small bits of antigens and so forth from diseases, because what will happen is, because it takes those that it takes a length of time for the adaptive immune system to work. There's some diseases like whooping cough and measles and that we want the body to act faster. So the vaccines are designed with already the learning material for that the body needs so that it can fight it faster when it's put into the body. Um, so that it knows what this disease already looks like and how to fight it. And then it gives it to the body in order to do that. Um, there's two types of acquired immune system, humoral and cellular. So the humoral fight uses antibodies, which are B cells, which we'll talk about in just a second, to fight circulating invaders that are outside specific infected cells. It responds more rapidly. It's kind of circulating within the system. Antibodies are created to fight those things, and the cellular immunity is more inside of specific cells. It uses T cells. Um, and I don't know why it stops at using using T cells. So it uses T cells to fight the battles inside cells. B cells are lymphocytes, so they're specific to the lymph systems, develop and mature in bone marrow. They produce antibodies or immunoglobulins to fight viruses and bacteria. So it learns it um, travels through the system in order to kind of gobble up things that are in the way, specific things that are in the way. T cytotoxic, the killer T cells and T helper cells are lymphocytes as well. So they're made in the bone marrow, but then they go to the thymus, just kind of above the heart, between the lungs and behind the sternum, where they grow and mature. And so those T killer cells hunt down cells marked with pieces of virus antigens and inject lethal enzymes into them through a hole that they make on the surface of it. And it's going to be very specific to those. It's kind of more of a very targeted type of cell. And the T helpers use chemical messengers to coordinate all the immune systems to kind of work together, call them into place and what they need. So I think what's most important to me that you understand is that the innate system is what we're kind of born with from the beginning. It's how the system is set up and packaged to help fight things that are not going to be good for it. And then the acquired immune system learns as it goes. It learns from past colds, how to fight cold, or it learns from past infections, past viruses, um, how it designs um, custom-made artillery to fight those infections. Of course, it's not perfect because we do get sick at times. So neuropeptides, which are much like neurotransmitters, that are released during exercise, enhance the immune system's response. They're also released in times of acute stress, so they aid in fight, flight, or flee. So neuropeptides. So, for example, these are kind of part of this whole immune system. So those NK cells, which are part of the innate system, are regulated by certain neuropeptides. And how we kind of have learned this is that NK cells, the amount of them in the bloodstream rises for 30 to 60 minutes after an acute stressor. So this is kind of trying to tie this immune system to the stress response system. Neuropeptides are released during both exercise, which can be kind of the way the body is getting pumped up and stuff, is also released during stress. And we see an increase in those NK cells at these times, which are also, they're part of our immune system. As stressors become chronic, though, they last longer. The body switches from cellular mediated to humoral. So it switches from things that are inside the cell, even more specific in fighting certain things inside the cell, to more within the bloodstream. And both can be suppressed over time. So I don't know that all of that really is very clear. I want to read a little bit of this. Let me see if I can hide myself. I don't know why this is acting so funny, and if I can, I'll just have to move myself as we go. These are direct quotes, and I'm just going to read them and then kind of go through them. Acute time-limited stressors include primarily experimental manipulations of stressful experiences, such as public speaking and mental arithmetic, lasting between 5 and 100 minutes. Now, this is during a research thing. So acute stressors are short-term, right? When the fight, flight, freeze, or faint is going to come up. And so it's in research trying to create that response. And they do that through things like public speaking, mental arithmetic. Reliable effects on the immune system included increases in immune parameters, especially natural immunity. Natural immunity is the same as the innate immunity. So what that means is that we are seeing an increase in those types of in what happens. It gets that natural immunity stirs up during these acute stressors. The most robust effect of this kind was a marked increase in the number of natural killer cells, NK cells. So they go up during acute stress, and large granular lymphocytes. So those lymph system specific white blood cells in peripheral blood. This effect is consistent with the view that acute stressors cause immune cells to redistribute into the compartments in which they will be most effective. So they go up in the blood and in the lymph systems during acute stress. When stressors were acute and time limited, that is, they generally followed the temporal parameters of fight or flight stressors, which were it's meant to fight. There was evidence for adaptive redistribution of cells and preparation of the natural or innate immune system for possible infection, injury, or both. So the system responds to acute stressors as it would in preparation for infection or injury, is basically what that means. So it doesn't have to be that there's an infection or injury, but the body is going to respond, the immune system responds and prepares for it as though it is. Acute stress upregulated parameters of natural immunity, meaning it activated them, the branch of the immune system in which most changes occurred, which requires only minimal time and energy investment to act against invaders and is subject to fewest inhibitory constraints on acting quickly. So I told you, it is the fast-moving one. So things that the body simply is effective and efficient when it assumes there might be a threat at play. In contrast, energy may actually be directed away from specific immune response, as indexed by the decrease in the proliferative response. So that more acquired immunity, specific immunity goes down, adaptive immunity goes down a little bit while innate immunity goes up. So the ability for the system to adapt to certain types of infections or stuff goes down. The specific immune response in general and proliferation in particular demand time and energy. They take longer. Therefore, this decrease might indicate a redirection away from this function. So if you think about that, when we're under stress, our innate natural immune system goes up. It goes into sort of preparation mode, but it takes energy away from it or does not give energy to the part of our system that is going to fight things that take longer. And so while it's preparing for something that may or may not be biological, potentially the things that are biological that need specific adaptive immunity for may not be getting it completely. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I'm going to move myself up here. The most chronic stressors were associated with the most global immunosuppression. So when stress goes on and on and on, then it begins to suppress the immune system, running out of resources, but the specific immune system is being suppressed in order to allow for the natural immune system, which is going to get a little bit tired out, as they were associated with reliable decreases in almost all functional immune measures examined. Increasing stressor duration, therefore, resulted in a shift from potentially adaptive changes to potentially detrimental changes, initially in cellular immunity and then in immune function more broadly. So again, first it's going to move away from that cellular immunity where it's working inside the cells very specifically, but then it's going to become more global as the resources are more and more depleted. Hope any of that makes sense. So, all right. And I actually think that is where I am going to end this. So I will see you next time.